Welcome to the History in Me podcast. I'm your host, LaCole Purley. This podcast is going to take us on pretty much a journey of self-discovery for me, of understanding why I feel the way I feel about being in the Black community as a whole, and also the history of St. Louis. I've been born and raised in St. Louis, and I realized in my early mid-20s now that I don't really know my city because I was always focused on school. Grew up in North County, so in different parts of the Spanish Lake area, the Riverview School District, and then switched over middle of fourth grade to the Ferguson Florissant District. So living in Florissant, those areas. And then COVID hit my senior year of high school. I was under lockdown for a year, took my first year of college virtually. Then I moved over to the Chicago downtown area, South Loop, that area, and lived there for a few years. Came back to St. Louis. I'm 22, got a degree, living in St. Louis and realizing, you know what? I don't know St. Louis. Because growing up, I know other people probably went around different parts of the city, but there was this issue of what the media portrayed, how dangerous St. Louis is, and it seems as if there's this distaste between St. Louis City and St. Louis County that I've been discovering and better understanding for myself. And I pretty much got to a point where I said, you know what? Let me get to know St. Louis. Let me see what's good about my city. Because I grew up and people around me, people in school, we were constantly going, I can't wait to get out of St. Louis. Can't wait to get out of St. Louis. It's just a terrible place. All these different things. I was taught to hate the city. I was taught to dislike St. Louis. I was taught to dislike people in general. The media, the news, the stereotypes. And that leads me over to my distaste when it comes to, I'm a Black woman, by the way. 24-year-old young Black woman. I am a Black American. Born and raised in America. Never been outside the country. Don't know how other countries operate. But here, in St. Louis, in the United States, as a Black individual, I want there to be more examples of quote-unquote Black excellence. But I also see how we're portrayed in the media, on the news, what you would hear. But then I would also see on a daily basis people that play into and actually are the stereotype. So I can't even be upset at how we're being portrayed, which is why I have pride as a Black woman. I take pride in being a good representation for the Black community, for women, for Black women, all the above. All the above. But I see so many examples that makes me weary of my own kind. Makes me weary of different elements of our culture. So I'm going on this journey to better understand the history behind what led our community to get to this point. So this whole History in Me podcast, I realized for myself that we all have our own individual stories. I'm partnered with Invest STI, decided to partner with them and go on this storytelling practice. And I told them from the jump, I told them from the very first session, because we're just a couple months in now, but I told them from the very first session, I said, y'all, I am here to investigate St. Louis. Because most of the people there are trying to change the narratives and bring more perspective from the actual residents and citizens in the North City area. Kingsville, Kings Highway, Martin Luther King Jr., the Ville areas, Kingsway, both east and west, pretty much North St. Louis City. Remember, I said how I'm from North County. Completely different areas, completely different. In St. Louis, you're going to hear about all these different counties. You're going to hear about all these different environments, these different neighborhoods, and trying to come together as a city. because the city itself to me is extremely divided. And I know there's a lot of history involved with it. I've been learning different things like that. But what inspired me to create and launch the History in Me podcast is overcoming a lot of the internalized disappointment in my community, disappointment in my city, disappointment in the media. Because there's a lot of good here. I didn't realize how much good there was because I was so focused on what people were saying versus experiencing it for myself. I am in the season of my life. The state of Missouri's motto is show me. We are a show me state. Yet I see too many of us falling for the media, falling for the stories. And it's not to say that these things did not happen. But we don't pay attention to the good. When was the last time you seen an announcement rewarding or celebrating somebody's 20-some, 30-some year of a happy, fulfilling love and marriage, especially in the Black community? When's the last time you seen that? But how often can you scroll on the media? How often can you go on the news sites and see distaste, distrust? This person cheated. This person ended up having a child outside the marriage. Abuse is happening. Restraining orders happening. You hear all of these stories and it makes you think, or at least to me, it made me think that's the norm. It made me think that's to be expected. But I've met, gotten to know, been experiencing, and paying attention to some people for years and watching them go, man, why can't everyone be like you? But then I realized, wait a minute, there's actually more people who do have healthy relationships. There's more people who do communicate well. Growing up, I was often told that I sound like a white person for using proper articulation, proper English, as if Black people can't be intelligent. I take offense to statements like that. That is poor representation of Black people. That is poor representation of what we are capable of. Not all of us can only talk in slang and not know how to read and write and be literate. Most people are literate enough. They just don't show it. They don't emphasize it. And that is detrimenting the reputation of Black people. So go with me on this journey. Go with me as I study more in history, study differences in the counties of St. Louis, what's led to my family, my experience being the way it is. Going back over certain things in my own history that I don't think about. Every single one of us has our own history. Our family's history, our neighborhood history, our city history. And we in for a ride, y'all. So the whole purpose of this is to dive deeper into what led us to get to where we are as Black people in St. Louis. What led me to get to this point. And know that history does not have to repeat itself. Especially the bad parts. That's mainly what I'm talking about. The bad parts do not have to repeat. Because the saying history constantly repeats itself, I see that. I'm seeing that across generations. But just know that we could take the stories, we could take the history, we can go ahead and learn these lessons and create a brighter future. A better space. So let's go ahead on this journey. Thank you so much for tuning in to the History in Me podcast with your host, LaCole, Purlz, Purley.